Guys, welcome to Livingseeds Farm. Welcome to our polytunnel talk. This is the first time I'm doing a free polytunnel talk. I normally charge to do this training, but it's a free polytunnel talk for you guys, and I sincerely hope that you get value out of this. This talk is going to be in two sections. This is the theory section, and then we'll be going down to our polytunnels, and I will show you the practical side of it. There's nothing really difficult about polytunnels, and if you are slightly mechanically minded, you will catch on very quickly. So the first question is, who has a polytunnel? I'm not talking about a high tunnel like the one behind us over here. I'm talking about a polytunnel, which is a small hoop-shaped tunnel like this. Who's got a polytunnel? Fantastic. Are you using your polytunnel? Are you using it? Are you guys using it? Fantastic. Guys, what you often see when you drive around the plots and farms or whatever, you see the carcasses of people's dreams. Am I right? Okay, and it's a sad thing, but they literally are the carcasses. It looks like a skeleton rib cage, and somebody decided that they are going to make money, and they spent a whole lot of money on high tunnels, and they started planting in them, and they came short, and they probably lost a lot more than just the tunnels. They probably lost the property, they lost a whole lot of other things as well. And that's incredibly sad. And the problem that you have is that there are companies selling high tunnels. You buy a high tunnel like that, it's 140,000 Rand. I don't know, the last time I checked, it was 140,000. I don't know what they're going for now. Does anybody know what a current price is? Nobody. Okay, so the last time I checked, a high tunnel was about 140,000 Rand. That's a lot of money. If you have one high tunnel, you will not make enough money to see any returns. The consensus talking to tunnel farmers, you need a minimum of 6 high tunnels. Yeah, you need a minimum of 6 high tunnels before you break even. Now that's a lot of money. It costs to keep 6 high tunnels warm over winter will cost you about 70,000 Rand a month. Okay, that's an additional factor. So you spending money on a high tunnel, 140,000 Rand. Plus you put in crops in, you're paying staff, you're paying for inputs. Winter comes, you can't just suddenly stop. You have to make a return on that high tunnel. Throw another 70,000 Rand a month at that. You've got to sell a lot of cucumbers to make 70,000 Rand. Okay, so we have a high tunnel, and I'll tell you how we bought the high tunnel. There was a farmer that had the carcasses of his dreams on his farm, and he sold us the framework of the high tunnel about 12 years ago for 10,000 Rand. So we paid 10,000 Rand for the framework, and it needed a whole lot of work. We had to weld, we had to replace, we repainted, and it cost us, I reckon, about 25 grand to actually have it ready to be installed, and then we had to put plastic onto it. So it's a cheap way of getting a high tunnel, is go and buy someone else's carcass. And I'm not being facetious. It's like literally go and buy somebody else's carcass. The other option to a high tunnel is a polytunnel or a caterpillar tunnel. I don't like calling them caterpillar tunnels because caterpillars are pests in my world. Okay, so they are called polytunnels, which is actually what their real name is. And there are pros and cons to this. There are pros to high tunnels, there are cons to high tunnel, there are pros to polytunnels, and there are cons to polytunnels. And I'm going to start with the cons, because you always get the bad news first. When everybody says, do you want the good news or the bad news? Give me the bad news first, so I've got something good to feel about afterwards. That's the way that I see it. So let's talk about polytunnels. Polytunnels, number one, are hard to mechanize. A lot of people with a lot of tunnels, especially if you have a lot of high tunnels, they want to drive a small tunnel tractor into it. They want to put a rotavator into it. They want to put some kind of machinery into the high tunnels. And a polytunnel, you just can't do that. It's like literally, and you'll understand why when we go, there's wires in front of the entrance. It's pretty cumbersome getting equipment into these polytunnels. The next thing is they're not suitable to large-scale agriculture. I'm not a good example of that because we grow 1,000 varieties of vegetables on this farm, and a lot of it is grown in polytunnels. But I am not large-scale agriculture. Those of you that drive past Eye of Africa and you see all of those tunnels, they've got something like 150 high tunnels. Okay, that is large-scale agriculture. Those guys are doing it properly. On the other side of the road, you had the Red Ant Farm, and they had fantastic high tunnels, and they're all in disarray. Yeah, it's gone. Okay, it's absolutely, all of the tunnels, the plastic is destroyed. The frames are standing there, but the plastic is gone. There's low vertical crop space in a polytunnel. So in a tunnel, they are specifically designed for vertical agriculture. And when I mean vertical agriculture, you are planting indeterminate tomatoes that are growing up, and you can drop the plants down and they'll keep growing up. And what will happen is the stem of the plant will coil on the floor, and they'll keep growing tomatoes the whole season. Or sweet peppers, you get indeterminate sweet peppers, where you actually train the sweet peppers up and you keep dropping the plant, you coil the bottom and the plant grows, and you drop the plant, coil the bottom and the plant grows. Or for things like cucumbers, anything that you can trellis or vine up that requires high heat. High tunnels are absolutely perfect for. Polytunnels, they'll do it. We grow tomatoes, we grow peppers, we grow cucumbers, melons in polytunnels. We just don't have the vertical space to get the best yield out of it. One of the biggest problems with a polytunnel, especially when you go over 20 meters, the high temperatures need to be managed. So when you walk, and you guys can walk into a polytunnel just now, when you walk into a polytunnel, as you walk into the entrance of the polytunnel, you can immediately feel, oh, this is nice and warm. And as you walk to the center, it suddenly becomes stiflingly hot. And today, when you walk into the tunnel, walk to the center of the tunnel. It's going to be wonderful because it's a nice cool day. Think about that when we're hitting 30, 32, 34, 38, 42 degrees Celsius. Managing the temperature in a polytunnel is a problem. With the high tunnel, you open the flaps, you open the doors, you bring the air in. If it's really bad, you can put a wet wall in, you can run a fan through the wet wall. There's a whole variety of things that you can do to control the temperature and the humidity in a high tunnel. Polytunnels, not that easy. It's also a lot more expensive, because on a high tunnel, you've got one big fan, one wet wall for the whole tunnel. That's 300 square meters. A polytunnel, you're looking at about 100, 120 square meters. Now, instead of having one fan for 300, you need one fan for every 100 square meters. So your costs rise exponentially. Nobody wants polytunnels anymore, hey? The inverse in winter. They're difficult to heat. High tunnels are quite easy to heat, especially if you get one of the more expensive ones that's sealed properly. Hot air rises, and you can put a ceiling into a high tunnel. So the minute you put a ceiling into a high tunnel, you have to heat a lesser volume of air, and the ceiling traps the amount of heat that's being escaped. And the ceiling is quite easy to install. We actually put a ceiling into our high tunnel every single winter. We haven't put one in yet, but when the seedlings start, we'll put a ceiling in. Polytunnels are mainly suited for summer crops and very select winter crops. So if you want to grow crops in a polytunnel over winter, you're stuck with things like Swiss chard and maybe kales, leaf crops, things like that. Whereas a high tunnel in winter, you pump heat into it, you're growing cucumbers in the middle of winter, and you're making a fortune. Normally you make the most money on summer crops in winter in a high tunnel. Polytunnels, forget about it, you're growing leaf crops and everybody else is growing leaf crops, especially in winter. Polytunnels are a pest aggregator. So the problem with a polytunnel is if you don't manage it, your pest load increases very, very quickly. And I'm going to talk exactly the opposite when I talk about the pros about polytunnels. So those are the main cons of polytunnels. It's a very short list. I'm going to go into the pros of polytunnels now. And maybe it's because I'm biased, but it's quite a long list. The first thing is they're very cost effective. You can put a 120 square meter polytunnel up for about 10,000 Rand. Turn it into 300 square meters, you're looking at 30,000 Rand, compared to a high tunnel, 140,000 Rand. It's very cost effective. It's a nice entry into the market. If you want to start growing in tunnels, put up a couple of polytunnels, you are not going to lose your house. Put up a couple of high tunnels, you're probably going to lose your house if it doesn't come right. There are minimal weak points. So the way that we build our polytunnels, there are probably no weak points. The tunnels are absolutely fantastic, okay? Whereas a high tunnel, every single joint, every single weld, every single place where the tunnel moves is a weak point. If you stand over here and you look down our high tunnel, I promise you that high tunnel was straight. But with the wind and the way the wind has actually moved this high tunnel, the tunnel actually goes like this all the way down, because every single joint is a weak point. Polytunnels are simple to construct. 3 people can put a polytunnel up. Granted, you can't have much of a breeze, but if you have 3 people and the knowledge, you can put a polytunnel up. A high tunnel, you need in the order of about 10 people to put a high tunnel up. If it's your first time, you're probably going to need more. There's no specialized knowledge. You can walk away this afternoon with the knowledge to put up a polytunnel. Literally, it's that easy. So after a 1-hour talk, you can go home and build a polytunnel. There's no specialized tools. The only specialized tool you need is a very special bending frame. We specially import them from China. They're called a trampoline. Okay, all you need is a trampoline frame, and I'll show you how to do it. There's nothing specialized. I can guarantee if you put an ad on Marketplace looking for an old trampoline frame, sorry, how many people have an old trampoline frame lying at home? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you guys want to buy 7, if you want to buy an old trampoline, talk to one of these guys.
Tunnel, so no.
You're turning yours into, you don't want to turn it into a tunnel. You want to turn it into a tunnel bender. You've got plenty of design options. So you can go for a multi-span, a polytunnel like this. So this is 8 polytunnels. We've connected 4 of them together and turned it into a multi-span polytunnel. You cannot put plastic over that. If you put plastic over that, the water's going to collect on top and it's going to collapse it. But you can run it with netting. You can have a full plastic, you can have a hybrid. So we use a hybrid design. You can work out the full plastic or the full netting very easily. And I'll show you how we do the hybrid design. Polytunnels give you faster crop growth. Because it's warmer for longer, the crops go faster for longer. So it's a season extender. You will get anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks of extra season in a polytunnel. We plan to shut down production in our polytunnels somewhere around the beginning of April. Beginning to mid-April, we start shutting down production. We had stuff that we had to kill in June because it wouldn't stop growing, because we had a warm winter. And that is the kind of season extender you get. And you get the extension on the beginning of the season and on the end of the season. So you can plant earlier and you can harvest later, which makes a polytunnel absolutely fantastic. I said to you that polytunnels are a pest aggregator. They're also easy to control pests in. They can be a pest problem if you don't manage them, and they can solve your problems with pests if you manage them correctly. If you use a polytunnel to exclude insects, so you want to exclude bagrada bugs, or you want to exclude locusts, or you want to exclude some kind of pest insect, put netting over your polytunnel. The gogas are outside, your plants are inside, life is happy. They're also very easy to control pests because you've only got 3 rows that you need to work with. In a high tunnel, you've got 10, 11, sometimes 12 rows in a high tunnel, depending on what's planted and how it's planted. And typically what you find is that the corners of the high tunnel is where the pest load starts, because the corners get the least attention. Because the guys walking up and down the rows, but they don't go and look in the corner and see what's happening over here. Polytunnels are simple to manage. They're very easy to manage. When you go down and have a look at our polytunnels, you'll see every single tunnel is numbered, and every single row in the tunnel is numbered. So we know this is alpha 1, this is alpha 2. If you look inside the tunnel, there's a little red tag inside the tunnel. Every 5th line has a red tag. So at number 1, there's no tag. 5, there's a tag. 10, there's a tag. 15, there's a tag. I can say to Josh, go to alpha 2, go to line 12, and position 6. And he will know that he walks into the tunnel, finds the second red tag, which is the 10th line, counts 1, 2 more lines, and he counts 6 hoops down. And between hoop number 6 and hoop number 7, he's going to find whatever I want to talk to him about. And Josh can do that to any one of my staff members as well. So it makes management a lot easier if you're actually able to control things like that. Polytunnels give you crop protection, and it gives you weather protection. So hail is an issue, cool. Frost is an issue, fantastic. Excess rain is an issue. The polytunnels solve your problems. All of those things that, who suffered with the hail this last summer? How much of your garden did you lose?
Half of it.
Half of your garden. If it was under plastic?
The stuff that was under plastic, we didn't lose.
The stuff that was under plastic, thank you very much, just proved my point. Or it can protect your crops. The nice thing, so if you look inside our high tunnel right now, you'll see that there's a whole lot of bags hanging inside there. The bags that are hanging inside that high tunnel is our bean harvest, our lettuce seed harvest. What else is inside there? Sunflower seed, sorghum. So we are busy drying seed inside that tunnel, because if we leave the seed out in the field, the birds are starving right now. So we're not feeding the wild birds, we're saving seed so we can sell you guys some seed. Okay, so you can use your polytunnel for non-growing purposes. The polytunnels down at the bottom, we dry paprika, we dry super hot chilies, who likes our dragon's fire? Who's tried the dragon's fire inside the shop? Fantastic. The dragon's fire, the super hot chilies, we dry the pods out inside our polytunnels, grind it up, and you guys get dragon's fire powder. Absolutely fantastic. So you can use your polytunnels for non-growing purposes. And we use our polytunnels as a massive dehydrator. And it works like this, very, very quickly. Cool. So what are the basics of the polytunnel? Fortunately, this section is quite short because we're going to be going down for a walk now. Who knows what the pipes are made out of? Who thinks they're plastic? Anybody?
PVC.
PVC. You think they're PVC? Okay, they're 100% steel. They're steel-framed polytunnels. If you use PVC plastic, it's going to last 2 years. You have to rebuild the whole thing again. With the polytunnels, we use steel pipe, 25 to 32 millimeter steel pipe. You can use a 1.6 or you can use a 2 mil wall. We prefer a 2 mil wall because we're in a high wind environment, and I'll show that to you just now. So you need steel pipes, you need galvanized wire, you need a Y standard or a K standard, which is the fence post that you knock into the ground. You need a couple of ground pegs. You need plastic or net, or plastic and net. And you guys can work out what you want. There are pros and cons to both of them. You need end clips. The end clips are a standard class 6 irrigation pipe that we cut a slit down. And I'll show that to you now. And you need tech screws. That's it. There's nothing else you need. And a little bit of savvy. So the pipe length is important, and this is where a lot of people come unstuck, because people try and take a shortcut. Most people can get steel pipe in a 6 meter length. The guys that do steel fabrication know that 6 meters is the standard length. You can get pipe in a 7.2 meter length if you buy it in a bundle, and a bundle is normally about 91 lengths. We originally started, so if you look at that tunnel over there, the second hoop in that tunnel is the very first tunnel that we put up. We used B grade steel. B grade 1.6 millimeter steel. We bought it in 6 meter lengths. We cut another length into 1 meter pieces and we welded it to make a 7 meter long tunnel, a 7 meter long pipe. I will show you the difference today. Why you mustn't use a 6 meter pipe. Take the time to weld a 7 meter length on. Those of you that know that if you try and cut a pipe with a hacksaw, it's never 90 degrees. It makes welding very exciting. What kills tunnels? There we go. Wind kills tunnels. But why does the wind kill tunnels? Sorry?
Tears the plastic.
It tears the plastic. No. Yes, it does, but that's not the main reason. The main reason that the wind kills a tunnel is because there's loose plastic. I'll take you to a tunnel now and I'll show you a tunnel where where the tunnel was uniformly round and the wind has actually bent it flat like this. And the plastic is still fine. It's the loose plastic that kills tunnels. If you don't build the tunnel properly and if you don't secure the plastic properly, netting is not that bad because the netting, the wind can push through the netting. But with plastic, if the plastic is not secured properly, you will lose your tunnel, guaranteed. If you lose a tunnel, so that the tunnel that I'm going to show you now, the plastic is on that tunnel now. I think it was replaced the year after we installed it because we had a felt fire that came through and melted the plastic. And I think that plastic has been on there for 5 years now. Okay, so loose plastic will kill your tunnel. If you're in a low wind environment, so if you're in town and you don't really have a lot of wind, go for a 25 mil diameter pipe, 1.6 wall is fine. If you're in a high wind environment, 32 mil, 2 mil wall. You will not regret it.
Sorry, what's the thickness of the plastic and also the net?
What's the thickness of the plastic and the netting? I'll get to that now for you. The joints are your weak spot. And I'm not talking about the joints in the steel because it's a single steel pipe. The joints in your plastic or your plastic and your net, that is your weak spot. The joint creates movement. Movement creates failure. Failure creates more money out of your pocket. The beauty of the design that I'm going to show you is that it can be joint free if you don't join plastic and net together. We join plastic and net together. We have not lost a tunnel because of the joint. We've lost a tunnel because we had a hurricane that took the roof off this building and it put it through 3 of those tunnels over there. The roof was lying about 140 meters away. We've lost tunnels because of the wire that runs down the tunnel. Where the plastic hits that wire, it creates a weak point and it tears on that wire. But otherwise, we have not lost a tunnel because the plastic has failed. So what do you cover it with? You decide what you want to cover it with. You have a goal. Some of you are growing ornamentals, some of you are growing orchids, some of you are growing ferns, some of you are growing veggies. I don't know what you're growing, but you can decide. And I'll just run through a couple of things now. So let's say you use netting. The standard netting comes in a 3 meter width. We prefer all net. The reason why we prefer all net is that Mani Gous, he's the rep for all net. He delivers to us. He's an awesome guy and he'll deliver small quantities to you. Other netting companies, how many hectares do you want? No, we don't do anything under 10 hectares. Well, thank you very much. That's not me. You will need, however long your tunnel is. So let's say your tunnel is 10 meters long. You will need a 30 meter roll because the netting needs to be 9 meters wide. So you take your 30 meter roll, you cut it into 3, and you sew them together side by side. And we'll show you how we sew them together. For vegetable production, you do not want to exceed 60% shade. So you've heard of, I've got 40% black, or I've got 30% blue, or whatever. So the percentage is important, as is the color. And I'll give you an example. 50% black all net is 50% shade. 50% white all net is 20% shade. So the color is important to the actual shade that your plants receive. You can go up to 80% for ornamentals and livestock. Things like fern, they don't need a lot of light. 80%. If you want 80%, take two 30%, put them over each other. Two 30% black gives you 80%. The math doesn't work, eh? Cool. Let's talk about plastic. Cool. Where do you get your plastic from? Greenhouse Technologies, they're at the Multiflora Flower Market, or a company called Green Zone in Elroad. The lady asked over here, what thickness is the plastic? You are looking for 180 micron diffused. So 180 micron, 190 micron, 200, 210 micron. Anywhere in that range. So you're looking for 180 micron diffused. What diffused means is you can't see through the plastic. It's got to diffuse. The guys have got fantastic technology. It's not actually a single sheet of plastic. It's a multi-layered piece of plastic. So it's 180 microns, and it's about 4 or 5 sheets of plastic that are stuck together. It's absolutely fantastic. A lot of tunnel plastic has a marking that says this side inside or this side outside. Obey what that is. If you don't obey it, you're going to lose your plastic a lot faster. Your plastic should have a minimum of a 5-year guarantee. We've had 5-year plastic that's lasted 8 or 9 years, if it's installed correctly. Cool. So we are going to go down now, and I'm going to go and show you our polytunnels, and I'm going to show you how to bend tunnel tubes or tunnel pipes. I'll actually get customers to bend the tunnel pipes to show you how simple this is. Nobody's going to recognize what it is, am I right? Nobody. So how we used to bend the very first tunnel that we put up, we didn't have a trampoline, but we had a tree, and I'm not pulling a horrible sign, guys. We had a tree with a fork, and we'd put the pipe in the fork, and we'd walk the pipe around the fork and actually bend it piece by piece. But then you have these like little straight bends in the pipe. It didn't look that great, but it worked. And our very first tunnel, we actually used a fork tree to actually bend the pipe. And that, it worked a treat, and it allowed us to put our first tunnel up. Our first tunnel was, like I said, we used B-grade steel, and the steel actually had a cut down the center, or a joint, because this is not extruded as a round pipe. It's a flat pipe that's rolled and then welded. So we got the pipe that they didn't weld properly, or it was Monday welding or something along those lines. Cool. So this is the 6 meter length, eh? Okay. So what you need to do when you're looking at a tunnel, the first 1 meter of the tunnel needs to be straight. So you don't want it to be curved all the way around to the bottom. So what we would do is we would mark 1 meter off. So you take 1 meter. Koki? No Coke here. That's fine, don't worry. Okay, so push it through. Go. That's fine. Okay. Now the important thing to remember is that we just measure the one side. I don't measure both sides. I just measure the one side, and you sort of gauge the other side. Thank you. This needs to be bent, and normally you'd have one person bending it around and then a second person helping just to put that last kink in. Now, I'm looking for 2 guys to help me. 2 guys. The ladies will be next, don't worry. Yourself, one other guy? Okay. So I'm going to be on the inside over here. The important thing to remember, I need you that side. The important thing to remember is that you want this pipe needs to ride, so lift it up. Okay.
Run parallel with the
Yeah, okay. Just hang on a second. So the important thing is the pipe needs to ride on the curve, which is quite difficult to maintain. The height needs to be the same the whole way around. If the height is not the same, what's going to happen is this will warp so that you'll have a tunnel pole won't be straight, it'll actually be skew like that, and that just doesn't look nice. I'm going to sit on the inside and I'll guide these guys. I need you at the end over here, please, sir. And basically all I'm going to say is up, down, and he will move his end up or down. Okay. And it'll get progressively harder for him until he gets over here. Cool. So, okay. Come in. Come. Down a bit. Come. Up a bit. Turn. Down. Bend. Go. Okay, just wait. I need you to come and help him over here, please. Down a bit. Down. Okay, bend. Okay, so now we've got to guess where our meter is, and our meter is about over here. So I want you to touch over here. Touch, bend. Okay, now down a little bit. Okay, give it a kink. That's it. Let go. You're done.
Okay.
Okay, pull it out. Go. Okay, so maybe, okay, come. So this is your 6 meter length. Okay, put your foot at the end so I can push it in. This is your 6 meter length. Sorry, yeah, this is a 6 meter length. Is it high enough for a tunnel? It's not high enough for a tunnel. And this is why, and what we'll do is we'll bend a 7.2 now, and you'll see the difference in the height. Can I get someone to stand over here, please? So, just put your foot down. Stand there. Okay.
To make space to work the next one.
Yes, no, I will.
Okay.
I will. Okay, so this is the center of your tunnel, and there's no space over here. There's very little space. But now you've got 3 rows inside this tunnel. So here's the center of your tunnel. This row over here, here's your vertical space. There's no vertical space to grow. And this is the problem with a 6 meter length. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let's loosen that one. Yeah, just lie it down on the ground. Okay, I'm going to need you guys to move slightly. 7 meter length. Okay. Go. Yeah. Check at that.
Micrometers mic, eh?
Hey?
The micrometers mic.
There we go, hey? Okay, so this is 7.2 meters. And I really like the 7.2 meter length because that extra 100 mils on either side actually makes a dramatic difference in the height of the tunnel. So we're going to do the exact same thing again. Okay, up a bit. Come. Okay, up. Come. Okay, down a bit. Okay, come. Go down a bit. Down. Okay, go. One more. A little bit more. That's it. Okay. Let go. Okay, pull it straight out. Cool.
Straight away.
Hey? Sorry, hold there. Do I need to say anything? Okay. So this,
It gives you a meter in elevation.
yeah. So this is the difference between a 6 meter and a 7. This is 7.2, but the original tunnels that side are all 7 meters long. Yes, ma'am.
Are you putting it on a spike in the ground?
Yes, I'll show that to you now. Okay, so it's a case of if you try and save the money on a 6 meter length of pipe, that is going to be the difference. And I think let's get the 6 meter up and put it inside so we can actually see the difference. Happy, put your foot over here. Come in. So to get the height over here, you actually lose growing space as well. All right. Cool, guys. Let's go and look at the tunnels. Can you guys see that this is not a major technical thing? You just need a little bit of skill. Maybe you mess up a couple of pipes, but you know what? You'll learn very quickly. Okay, guys, what I want you to do is look down the side over here. You'll see that this side over here has been flattened out, and it's been flattened out because of the wind. This is not flattened out because we didn't bend it properly. It's been flattened out because of the wind. If you go from this tunnel and you go to the next tunnel and you look down the next tunnel, you'll see that the frames are still perfect because this tunnel's taken the brunt of the damage. But the tunnel is not damaged. We can still work inside this tunnel, and this plastic has been on here for 6 years, at least 6 years. Cool. It's only been replaced once, and it was replaced because we had fire damage. Excellent. Any questions, guys? Yes, sir.
What do you use to fix the plastic
To the netting. I will cover that now because that's very important.
How long are these tunnels?
These tunnels are 30 meters long. It's the maximum length I recommend with a polytunnel. If you go over 30 meters, you are going to have heat problems. We're going to allow, it says do not enter on here. We're going to allow you guys in. It's not really a problem. Walk to the center of the tunnel, feel the heat in the tunnel. You can walk out the bottom and come back up. This over here, is it closed? Oh, okay. Well, you can go into the first 4 tunnels. It's not a problem. This wire over here is the reason why you can't mechanize these tunnels. Because what's going to happen is you can't get anything inside here, and I guarantee one of you are going to go like this. It's guaranteed. And we'll laugh at you. Because it's going to be funny. Okay, just don't hurt yourselves, please. It's staked. It's connected, so this frame over here is connected to that Y standard over there. All of the other frames are loose. There is a wire running down here that connects it. The wire is just to help for spacing. The wire is not really support. What I'm going to do is, there's a couple of guys, let's see how many we can fit into the tunnel. Come inside. You'll see yourselves on YouTube. Okay, guys, so for you to understand, and let me just straighten this. You can see, yeah, pull. Okay, so if you take your hand and you put your hand between the plastic and the steel, you can feel how tight this plastic is. There is no give. Cool, so I want you to have a good watch at what I'm doing. I weigh about 100 and something. Okay, and I wasn't playing, I was throwing my weight at it. Okay, this is the reason why this tunnel actually stands. If you look down the tunnel, you can actually see the tunnel looks like a wave. Okay, and the reason why it looks like a wave is the wind has been so strong here that it's actually bent the steel into a wave. If you go and look in the next tunnel, it'll be perfectly round. How warm is it in here, guys? Hey, when you walked in, it was nice. It's starting to get uncomfortable, hey?
And what's the interval in between this?
2 meters.
2 meters.
2 meters. So you need 16 of these pipes for a 30-meter tunnel. For a 10-meter tunnel, you'd need 6. For a 20-meter tunnel, you'd need 11. Cool. So the question is, how do we join the plastic to the net? So the reason why we have net at the bottom and plastic at the top, the plastic keeps the rain off the crop, so we have less disease pressure. The net at the bottom allows air to come in along the length of the tunnel, and then the air moves out on either side. It helps to keep the tunnel cool. This is joined with a stapler. We have an industrial stapler. So we join the netting to the plastic with an industrial stapler. We then put the plastic onto the frame, and we have a team of ladies that uses baling twine and a handmade needle. We take a piece of blow dart, sharpen the blow dart, drill a hole in the end, well, flatten the other end, drill a hole in, make it into a big needle, and we will sew the netting to the plastic. And if you sew the netting to the plastic, it will not fail. It will not fail on that joint. If you don't sew it, it will fail. Excellent, guys. Any questions?
Don't put the netting, will it be too hot, obviously?
If you don't put the netting, it'll be too hot. The netting is buried under the soil, so there is 3 meters of netting on either side.
2 meters almost in the ground.
2 meters almost in the ground. We dig about 500 mils down, and then we line the netting in, and whatever's left over is put on top, and it's covered with soil. If you don't bury the netting, or if you don't bury the plastic, you'll be fetching it at your neighbor's property. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
The steel frames, are they just on top of the soil?
Oh, yes. I said I'd answer that question. So, what we do, and I'll show you over here. So, we have about a 300 piece of 10 mil round bar. We have a 150 mil piece of whatever 30 mil wide flat bar. We drill a 10 or a 10.5 mil hole into the flat bar, put the round bar into the flat bar, we leave 100 mils on top, and we knock that whole thing. That flat bar, if you feel at the bottom of the pipe, you'll feel the flat bar, but this pipe is loose. So the pipe is loose.
Is that
So what
important to
anchors
have
it?
that play?
No, it just helps.
Just the way it is.
So the reason why we have the flat plate, you don't have to put the flat plate. You can have the peg directly in the soil. The reason why we have the flat plate underneath the plastic is that this pole sits on the flat plate. When it gets really wet and the ground gets soft, the pipes don't sink into the ground. Okay, that's the only reason why we have the flat plate there. Hey, Aubrey.
I actually meant the play on the rod. Do you
Oh
need
no.
play?
So if you look at how tight the plastic is, the play is irrelevant. Okay? If your plastic is not tight, what's going to happen is the play that's given there will lead to the failure of the tunnel. You want this tunnel to be as tight as possible. The tighter this tunnel, and what we like to do is we like to put the plastic on a warm day. Because then what happens is the plastic expands, and while they're filling the trenches in, we have a team of guys, and their job is just to make it as tight as possible. So that when it's hot, today's a pretty warm day, inside here it's quite warm, this plastic is tight. In the middle of summer, it's still actually quite tight. Yes, ma'am, at the back, in the center.
When you put on the plastic, do you do it from one end to the other or from side to side?
Okay, so what we do is we go to Verimark sells these very nice rubber mops. So we use rubber mops. We use 3 rubber mops. We put the plastic on one side, and we have 3 guys with a rubber mop, and you just lift the plastic up over until it comes down to the other side. If it's really, really cool, what you can do is you have a light breeze coming onto the tunnel. You take your plastic and you actually spread the plastic in front of the breeze, and the breeze will carry it over. I've only managed to do that. I've put up, I don't know how many tunnels. I've only managed to do that about 3 times. But when it happens and you have people watching, you look like an expert, eh?
So your distance between the netting and this, I see it's different.
Yeah, it was just the way it was put up, yeah. We normally like to try and get it even. It doesn't always happen. The only other thing, I'm feeling this over here on my thumb, every single sharp piece of metal needs to be facing inside. Okay, so once you've put the frame up and your wire on and all of those things, you yourself don't task somebody. Go and check every single joint to make sure that the wire is not facing out. If the wire is facing out, it's going to be a very upsetting mistake.
You only got 3 wires along the leg.
Yes.
Okay. Not where the join is.
What joint?
The join between the plastic.
Oh, no, not at all. No. So the wires are just there to make the support of this frame easier. So you could see when I got here, I actually moved this pipe. What the wire does is it helps to hold the pipe where it is, because when the wind blows, this tunnel moves like this. As the tunnel is moving like this, these poles tend to drift. So this wire is there to hold the pipes upright. It's not to support the plastic or anything like that. Yes, ma'am.
The rods that you're using, I missed that. How far do they stick out the ground?
100 mils. It just needs to hold the bottom of the pipe. And the bottom of the pipe, once the plastic is on, the bottom of the pipe's not going anywhere, as long as the peg holds it in place. Excellent, guys. Any other questions?
When do you use total netting or total plastic?
Okay, very good question. So when do you use total netting and when do you use all plastic? So you can see we've got a whole lot of multi-span netting tunnels. We're taking the multi-span netting tunnels down this year and we're going to convert all of our tunnels back to this. So we will lose at least 1 bed, because actually no, we'll lose about 3 beds, because when you put a multi-span on here, you make up, you can actually collapse these beds slightly from 1 meter to like 800, and you can put another 3 beds in before the next bed. So we'll be losing literally half of our growing space. However, what we found is that the netting, we predominantly grow tomatoes in these tunnels, tomatoes and peppers. And what we found is that the tomatoes are very susceptible to diseases with under netting. So netting, personally, I would look at netting for things like ornamental crops, orchids, things that like a high humidity, ferns, all of those lacquer things. If you're growing food crops like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, etc., plastic. Yes, sir.
This wire, what millimeter thickness do we
Yeah, it's about that thick. Yeah.
This is binding wire.
It's the cheapest wire we could buy at the co-op.
It's a roof wire.
Hey?
I was telling me it's a roof wire.
It's a roof wire, yes. Anything else? Guys, thank you very much. I hope you learned something. Enjoy your polytunnels.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.